Johnny were sweethearts. Oh, how they did love. They swore to be good to each other, true to the stars above. He was her man, and he'd been doing her wrong. Frankie went down to the corner to get a little glass of beer. And she says to the fat bartender, has my loving man been here? Have you seen my man? I think he's doing me wrong. I don't want to tell you no story, I sure won't tell you no lie. I saw your man about an hour ago with a gal named Nellie Bly. He was your man, and he'd been doing you wrong. Frankie peeked over the transom and saw to her surprise, there on the bed sat Johnny, loving up Nellie Bly. He was her man. He'd been doing her wrong. Frankie looked over the transom and saw to her surprise, there on the bed sat Johnny, loving up Nellie Bly. He was her man, and he'd been doing her wrong. Frankie reached into her kimono, out with a big 44. She shot once, twice, 3 times. Johnny hit the hardwood floor, and he was her man, and he'd been doing her wrong. Bring out your rubber tight buggies, bring out your rubber tight hats. I'm taking my man to the graveyard, I ain't gonna bring him back. He was her man, and he'd been doing her wrong. Frankie said to the judge, this had come to pass. I never shot him in the first degree, I shot him in his trifling ass. He was my man, and he'd been doing you wrong. This story has no moral, this story has no end. This story just goes to show that there ain't no good in men. He was her man, and he'd been doing her wrong.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show here on Grant Street in the Flagstaff bastion of musicians here with another cat from a band that I've really gravitated to this year called Bush League. One of the lead guitar players, singers, Canyon Green. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, thank you.
You know, on stage, it's very sublime, your kind of playing. As I've noticed looking back at the videos, obviously, I'm in an altered state of consciousness during your shows. But when I go back and listen, you're doing a lot more than meets the eye. And the definition of genius is making something look complex, make it look very simple. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about how you've learned to synthesize your ideas and actually tell a cogent or coherent story when you solo.
When I solo, um, I don't know. I feel like when I solo, I take a lot from the big idols I have. Mainly Jerry. He's top of there for me. And it started just like figuring out what notes I like to play, um, and then I kind of like to hear the Jerry stuff where he.
I mean, you could hear it. I honestly, there was parts of that was it Frankie and Johnny, that
Yeah,
song?
Frankie and Johnny.
I mean, there were parts that you were channeling Warfield 1980, like that acoustic stuff. But Jerry, most of his, he would probably stay up after a show at his home and stay up till 4 a.m. just picking the acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
But it's so melodic. So can you talk about basically in the moment melodies when you're trying to form because that's what I'm noticing is like, I'm like, Canyon, man, dude is a sleeper player, man. I mean, it comes out of nowhere. It's because with Jerry, it hits you,
Mm-hmm.
and Bobby's such a different kind of player, but I guess maybe more to the point, how have you learned or how quickly did you get into that weave with Dylan? Because that's really what it is this intoxicating weave.
Well, that goes back. I've known Dylan forever. My dad knew Dylan's mom when she was in high school, way long ago. So I grew up with Dylan for a long time, and it wasn't till we were like 13. I was 13 probably, and we really started playing together. And we both liked the Dead. That was like what we could do, and we could both play every Dead song at the time.
That's insane.
So then it was just let's play Dark Star, and it get weird. And I mean, we're like young teenagers, and we're getting weird on these guitars. And I remember there's just moments where like we went to go see Dead and Company up in Boulder, and my dad dropped us off downtown Boulder, and Dylan and I just had guitars and we just busked, and it was just playing these songs, and we just play with and against each other, and just learning how to do that. And now it's almost been 10 years of doing that. So yeah, I think we just know each other's playing real well.
Were you doing primarily? You weren't playing with a rhythm section. You and him were just playing
two guitars,
acoustic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And even so, was it sort of a traditional Bobby and Jerry kind of duo, or were you? I mean, was it your own sort of take on? Because some stuff, Dire Wolf, or some of these acoustic tunes, they lend themselves to, sort of the push and pull, or there's counterpoint there because of Phil and things like that. But can you talk about your own, how you work together to make it your own thing? It wasn't a carbon copy of Weir and Garcia.
So when we were learning the songs, when we first learned them, we weren't like, oh, I'm going to play this with Dylan. We were just learning them to play them.
Sure.
So then we'd show up and we'd play the songs, and we'd end up playing the exact same parts. And be like, well, one of us has to figure out something new. And that would kind of teeter where, like, instead of doing, Dylan or I might go like, and I guess like it started with that stuff, and
so basically being able to, that was where the weave began.
Yeah, that's
so
where it
beautiful.
began.
That Boulders, I think if I remember, that was kind of before. Those were still kind of magical Dead and Co shows. It's not like the blown up TV screens, things like that.
No, it was right on the edge of that.
Exactly. And you busked downtown, and all the Deadheads were just loving life.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's kids at those Dead shows, but we were the kids who were like, we know you play a song, I tell you what year it is, and
I dig. No, you were the Wooks, right? I mean, they call people the Wook. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean that. How do you feel like that material, in hindsight, has led to original song creation? Because you're not playing like, I mean, it is like, Bush League is like a fusion funk operation, mainly because of the rhythm section. I mean, and I don't think we've even seen the heights of it, but nobody would mistake it for the Dead. I mean, you played Not Fade Away or whatever. I don't even know if that's an original tune, but I mean, you play a Dead tune once in a while, but your music doesn't. So how did you take those germs or those themes and turned it into The Reason I Love You Guys, the original music?
It started out with like Dylan. I would get deep with jams. Like yeah, we're playing Fire on the Mountains. We're playing Scarlet Begonias. But there's a point where the song doesn't even matter what song we're playing. We're just playing music, and we get into something that's so far from where we started. And I think that's kind of where our originals come from, is just kind of taking something that you might like and just riding with it, and then you're in another part of the world at that point.
Is there one tune in particular you can point to that came from one of these, Lost Sailor Saint jams? I'm not saying that. I mean, just because it's not like, maybe if I listen live, it just, sometimes you might hear some kind of thing in there where you're like, oh, that kind of sounds a little bit like, but is there any tune that comes to front of mind for you where you remember that it came from one of these, altered state jams?
I don't remember what we were jamming, but I remember one time we were just sitting in a little room, Dylan, Liam, and I, and we were just noodling around. We were playing I can't remember what we were playing, and I started doing, it's like some lick, something overly complex. I was noodling, and then Dylan was like, "That's cool," and then we made it into a lick, full on lick. And this was before Bush League, but we knew Bush League was happening, but nothing had gone. We made it into this lick just from jamming, and then that lick turned into a whole song, and then after that we cut the lick out of the song, and that's Drift. That was like our first Bush League song was Drift. That's on their EP.
Wow.
So yeah, it just started with noodling, and then we made the song, and then the part that made us start writing that song is now no longer, but we still.
I'm trying to think. That's what got me there. The original antecedent was not even part of Drift. Is that right?
Yeah.
It was just sort of a catalyst for more imagination. When you think about like you and Dylan going way back and now, like, have you struggled to find how easy or how hard was it to actually fall in, not necessarily with this rhythm section, but just in general, rhythm sections in general? Was that a rather fluid thing, or was there, because there's nothing worse than there's a lot of jam bands. I hate that word, but the thing about music in this context, you're not playing the American Songbook. You're not playing, Space Travelers Union kind of stuff. But in that jam context, the groove has to move. And that comes from the rhythm section. Otherwise, there's nothing worse than jam-based music that gets stuck. So can you just talk about your evolution in rhythm sections? Have you only had one? And what was that like for you guys to actually put a rhythm section behind you?
I feel like, so I was in a band with Ryan Wheelis years ago.
Whoa, Eternal Wheelis in you.
Eternal Wheelis.
Dude, this is so beyond. And what was the name of the band?
Righteous Harmony. It was our high school band.
Oh dear, where are the tapes of this stuff, dude?
They're out there.
Okay, I'll get it. Yeah.
And I feel like that rhythm section was driving, but it wasn't all the time. Like, it wasn't jam band at all times. It was jammy, but it was a weird mix of like jazz, and then we'd get pretty heavy at some points.
Wow.
And that was a good rhythm section, and those guys are good players. And then we got into Bush League. Carson's a great drummer, but when we started Bush League, he hadn't been drumming for longer than 2 years or something. And,
that's right. Dylan Good told me that. He's kind of just getting going. That's incredible.
And I think the main thing that like kind of put together the rhythm section was just the music we were listening to, and still are. But specifically, Carson has kept that rhythm section. He's just striving for the next thing, and I think the way he's just practicing and stuff, he comes up with these cool ideas that Liam feeds off of immediately. And then like Trey has a quote where he says, "I never need to think of an idea. There's ideas from people all around me." And I think we take a lot from that, whether we know it or not.
And that means you don't need to intellectualize it so much. That in the moment, you can listen, open your ears, and hear what everybody else is trying to. I mean, if they're creative, they're throwing ideas in your ears, right? So don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated, and everyone receives an idea a different way. So I might hear Liam play some bass line, and the way I respond, something he never would have thought of, or maybe he was thinking about it. Who knows? But
you know, it may not seem relevant, but why are you guys like so old school? I mean, you're not that old, you know, but like this, everyone that I've interviewed from the band, you have old souls. I mean, is that just something regionally that you can point to this elevated flag and environment? I mean, I'm still trying to get my finger on it because I mean, most cats, and there's badasses all over the place. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know, man. Feels like you guys just got touched or something, man.
I think it's Flagstaff. Like, I hate to say that.
And what do you, and talk to people around the world that don't, because I mean, I've been, you know, Flag is cold as shit in the winter, but it's beautiful. It's ridiculous in the summer. There's pine trees everywhere. I don't see any homeless people. I don't know if that's good or bad, but there's not really a legitimate record shop. And yet there's all these heads and there's all this beautiful scenery. So maybe the natural component.
I think the natural component, and I think a big thing is like why were we born in Flag, and it's because our parents were, oh, Jerry died, and you know you got to go somewhere, and it ended up being Flagstaff, or just weird things where Flagstaff in the late 90s was just way different now, and I think all those people who were there then kind of cultivated this thing for their kids to grow up in, and we do nothing different. So we're growing up and we're like listening to Grateful Dead like it's no one's business, and then we come down here and people are like, yeah, what is that?
Dude, I freaking love it's so, yeah, no, Garcia's feeding me right now. It's obvious that what was the in terms of like there were like at the holidays families would get together and there'd be mute jams, and when you talk about setting that foundation for what your folks, I mean, it wasn't like they were going on tour anymore. They weren't going to see the other ones. But was it always music? Was it always communal sharing? What was that like?
So I feel like when I was growing up, my stepdad, he's a banjo player, and he was in the folk scene pretty heavily.
Which coast?
This is Flagstaff.
Folk scene Flag. Got it.
Folk scene Flagstaff.
Wow.
And he's super smart guy. Got a degree in biology from NAU. But he was just keeping up with the banjo, and growing up there'd be jam sessions all the time. We'd go to Mexico, and all that would happen during that Mexico trip would be jams all the time. So many people, and growing up with that, I think really put things in frame for me, and I never realized it until recently. And
what made you realize it?
That isn't so common over the place. And no. I thought it was just something that was there. So like the songs that Frankie and Johnny, that's a song I've been playing forever. This guy, his name's Tony. He kind of walked me through some old folk picking songs and telling me dirty jokes and telling me ways to play guitar, ways not to play guitar. I think that is where I kind of like got a grasp on music before moving into the Dylan phase, was like seeing all of that. And even if I'm not trying to play for a show, I can sit outside and I can play whatever I want, and if people like it, they're going to like it, but it doesn't matter.
That's right. I freaking love this. You know, before we wrap, by the way, Bush League is playing here in Tucson at Hotel Congress stage tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Yep. 2
sets. The guy who did fundamentally in the Cosmos connect me as a journalist with you guys was Haven Walker. And I did want you to talk about his legacy and how meaningful his spirit is still here.
Oh yeah.
And it's obvious because, you know, he's kind of guiding me in this sense. And I don't worry about it. But I just wonder what you think, what is a defining memory you have of Brother Haven?
Well, there's a lot of funny ones because, I mean, people are friends with Haven, but I think of Haven as my friend's dad, so we're trying not to get in trouble and trying to do all these things.
Right, he's actually a real dude, father. You know,
Yeah.
like don't fuck up, right?
I'm trying to think. I have some good memories of Haven.
I mean, what did he mean to? How much did he mean to the guys in the music scene there? I mean, he was.
I mean,
he was part. You even though Dylan's family, those Mexico trips was before you started to play with Dylan.
yeah.
But was he on those trips too?
He wasn't.
Yeah, talk about when Haven came into your consciousness. You know.
I mean, Haven's always been there. I never really thought Haven as a musician for a while. It wasn't until I started playing music where I was like, oh, Haven knows what's up. And and I remember jamming one night. There's a Grateful Festival up in Flagstaff, and I remember one night we were all camping and jamming, and that was just such a good moment. Dylan and I noodling around, and he's like, "Let me show you what's up," and it goes like that. I remember a lot of camping times. Dylan and I and Jack were on a bike team, and Haven would come to those bike races with us, and they always end up picking music. And it was just like, oh, we can play music with our friends' dads. It's just a funny experience.
Well, and actually, like not just that, but like at a very high level.
Yeah.
And he didn't brag about it. He just was one like he was like, yo, let me show you how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you how it's done. Well, Kenyon, man, it is so great to know you. I know I've come out of left field here, but it's been such a ball to hang with you guys, and it's really going to be fascinating to see your evolution and growth as a band in this time, and you're very much needed for the people to heal during these very dystopic, dangerous times.
Thank you.
So thanks for being part of the show, man.
Of course. I'm glad to be part of it.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show. See you later.